Are we having a party here? I don't know.
Welcome to Polishing Profits. Join our 3 industry experts boasting 140 years of experience as they unlock building service contracting secrets that can revolutionize your business. All right. Well, welcome to another, might I say, outstanding episode of Polishing Profits, brought to you by the think tank with 150 years of BSC experience. And on my right, Ed, you want to wave at the people and give them one word of wisdom or something? I don't know. What's the word?
Yeah, on that 150 years, man. I mean, what does that equal to in how many bathrooms we cleaned? I mean,
oh my God.
Is there a mathematical thing right there?
Yeah, I don't know, but I think 150 years puts the old saying, you need 10,000 hours to be considered an expert. We've probably got 10,000 hours by 100. So,
yeah.
Sharon, what's your word of advice to the listeners today? And hello.
Hello. My word of advice is to take seriously and think about everything we discussed. With 150 years, there's not that much information out there. So it's all right here, and we're not charging you for it.
There you go. Now.
The price is right.
Yeah.
And I'd say that we all look pretty damn good for 150 years old.
We do.
Okay, with that.
That might be a stretch, Mark. That might be a stretch. So.
Well, look, I said looking pretty good for 150 years. We'll leave Sharon out of the equation. She always looks good, right? So yes. That's why she's stuck.
Sharon always looks good. Yes, agreed.
You and I don't, but that's just the curse of being a guy. All right. You guys look fine. So now I'll probably get all kinds of stuff about, well, that was sexist. Yeah. Moving right along, none too swiftly, I might add. We're going to finish up our planning for the end of the year, things to look at. And today we're going to talk about personal and professional development. Sharon, you want to kick us off?
Yeah. One of the things that's so important in your personal and professional development is your health and wellness. Okay. Taking care of yourself. That's got to be first and foremost. Your own health, your own mental well-being. Otherwise, you're unable to tackle the issues, problems, growth, development, everything that's going to come dive bombing your way as you run your business and you grow it. So unless you're mentally prepared and healthy, which after 150 years in this business, mentally healthy, we're all not.
Yeah, we're fine.
Yeah. It's just an occasional tick.
We're fine. We're fine.
No, I think taking care of yourself is utmost number one responsibility of yourself, because if it's just like in the airplanes when they say when the oxygen masks come down, put yours on first. That's what you're going to do in your business. Put your own oxygen mask on first, then take care of your business. Family, then your business.
Yeah.
Ed, any thoughts on there? It looked like you had a pearl of wisdom there you were going to drop for us.
As far as the overall thing on professional development, I kind of think that on the days that you don't learn something are a waste. As soon as I figured out that college was bullshit, okay, and that all they did was teach me how to learn, okay, and all the learning I've done, I did on my own. So, as far as I'm concerned, a day that you didn't learn something new is a day lost.
Yeah, good points from both of you. I think part of the problem of being an entrepreneur and running your own company is there's always something to do. Mm-hmm. You always want to get it done. And you never step back and say, I need some time for myself. I need some think time, some rest time, some recharge time. Put whatever label you on it, but we're always hardest on ourselves. And when you're pulling the train, when you're the engine pulling the train, at the end of the day, the attorney's favorite saying, you own it all. I mean, you're accountable for everything that went on. That's extreme accountability, or you own it. Whatever somebody did on the account, they come to you if they don't get satisfaction through the management. And that's a big, heavy load. My mentor used to tell me, geez, you're pulling a train with 300 full-time people and you've been doing it here for 25 years. We were thinking about getting out. And he said, you know, I don't blame you. He said, it just gets time. It's a lot of work. So what do you do for yourself? Do you take time for yourself? And to Sharon's point, yourself means whatever your spiritual motivations are and your family, and it's more than business. There's basically that triangle of, you know, family, we can call it spiritual, and then business or skills or whatever you want to work on. But all those things have to work together, or you're going to get tired and not do the best job you can possibly do. And I think the tendency of entrepreneurs, everybody's all about the grind anymore. Lord, I hate that word. We're going to grind. Everybody's going to grind. We're going to work harder. Well, not necessarily.
I thought grinding will get you a sexual harassment suit. That's what I thought.
Yeah.
Oh, dear. Well, Ed, you've put me in a precarious position.
You got to follow that.
Well, yeah. me and the first wife had that worked out when we lost a huge customer, and we had to give up our office and warehouse. And we moved into this place where, I mean, there wasn't like 18 inches anywhere. Okay. And so what we thought about, well, listen, what we'll do is you complain about sexual harassment, and then you can sue the company, and then we'll shut it down and go fishing.
And how did that work out for you?
Well, we're divorced, so that ought to tell you something. So.
To qualify, the grind I'm talking about is, thanks for the clarification, Ed. It's always work harder, do more. And I can go down there. I'm not going to call anybody out, but a number of thought leaders are all about the grind. And I was always taught, work smarter, not harder.
Yes.
Because just grinding doesn't get you anywhere. I mean, the horse gets tired, it doesn't pull the wagon faster. Mm-hmm. The horse has to rest to pull the wagon, to use that analogy. Yeah. Nothing wrong with the grind. We all wouldn't be in business if we didn't work hard at it. But I think not taking that break for health and learning more, Ed, your earlier point, is critical.
There was one other thing that was important to me, and I started before I went into business, was journaling.
Mm-hmm.
I journal
to be able to put down in as clear as possible what's going on in your head, what's going on around you. That was a tremendous help to me, was the journaling.
And that's go ahead, Sharon.
I read a statistic of successful people are lifetime learners. Mm-hmm. They learn, just to Ed's point, they are learning something every day. And it's a valuable day if you learn it. It can be something positive. It can be where you learn from your mistakes. It can be a negative, but you're always learning. So when you fall down on something, that is a learning point. You learn from that and you move forward.
Those are powerful lessons.
Yeah.
And you go back to, you tripped a thought in my mind, the old saying, and boy, this goes back into the 80s, but readers are leaders. Now, we get information in a lot of different channels now, but that's what I grew up with. If you're not reading, you're not learning. If you're not thinking, if you're not looking for new ways to apply to your business. And again, to work faster and smarter, it isn't necessarily working harder. If you're, it's the difference between doing the right things and doing things right. There is a chasm, a canyon between those two things. I can be doing the things right, but am I doing the right things? It's a play on word.
Gee, that ought to be on a T-shirt, Mark.
I'd love to take credit for it, but I learned it through Stephen Covey, and that was preached, through all my, and like you, Ed, I went to college, but all they taught me was how to learn. I'd already been to prep school prior to that. Did I learn some things yet? Did I learn how to run a business? Sorry, I didn't. Now, I wasn't running a $1 billion business and a smart technology guy, but we're not in that industry. And a lot of what we need to know there's a ton of places. I used to drive from here to Portland, Tacoma, Seattle area. I had 2 hours in the car. I listened to tapes. I went to the cassette university, and, Earl Nightingale, you just go down the list, Tony Robbins, and I played tapes a lot of those drives and just listened.
So for the young business owner who might be listening, who's maybe under 5 years in the business, in the industry. If we had to say to them, how many books, business books, should you read? Where do you find them? And how often should you be reading business books? One a week? One a month? How do you go about increasing your knowledge of how to run your business? What do you do?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I cheat and I've used executive summaries, which is
what was that? Board something or other, board review. What was that newsletter?
Boardroom, way back in the day.
Boardroom. Yeah. That was unreal. Shame that's not around anymore. That was really cool.
That's Brian Kurtz, and he's still around, but he's running a group. But he was with the initial people. But that whole thought, they talked basically, Boardroom talked about business ideas, ways to improve, problems, case studies, and it took off. It was one of the largest publications in the 80s.
It was bite-sized also. That was the beauty of it. It was bite-sized. So.
Well, that's why I read summaries anymore. There's blink lists, there's I've read executive summaries for years, and it takes a book and in about 8 pages condenses it, and you get the gist of what you want to do. Because really, when you're reading, all you want is an idea to help you do something. We read for ideas.
Yeah.
One thing I'm curious about, what did you bring over with you from the corporate world, Sharon?
Oh,
what came out of that?
The number one thing I brought was attention to the financials and learning how to read a profit and loss statement and learning the impact that what I did would have on that bottom line of the company.
Cool.
And management of people. I'm going to say those two things,
Mm-hmm.
because in the corporate world, you really have a lot of rules to follow with HR, and they teach you. That's what I learned there is you can do this, you can't do this. We have to be compliant. We have to do this. So I really brought the HR piece and the financial piece.
Very cool. Very
but
cool.
You can get those things today if you haven't had experience in the corporate world, by involving yourself in our industry to get industry specific information. And that's one of the other key pieces of professional development, is getting involved in trade associations, going to conventions, going to workshops. The most exciting part of doing those things is your peer-to-peer, one-on-one networking with other business owners and learning from them as well. But gathering all that information at industry events is a huge part of your development.
Well, and I'll give us a shameless promotion and plug, but having a third party that doesn't have a dog in the fight,
right,
that you can talk to. A lot of my clients, we strictly have a meeting once a month, and they bring their problems. That's my problems to profits report. And all we do is talk about what they're working on, what they're struggling with relative to the business.
Right.
And that's it. That's the whole conversation, because they need that outside third party. And when you're not big enough to have a board or a peer group or those sort of things, and there's a lot of people out there other than Ed and Sharon and I, can all provide that valuable third party, unbiased opinion and helping you sort through things, and just having a sounding board. I've had mentors all my life. I've had coaches all my life since I was 18. And just having that sounding board, I can't tell you, at the times it saved my life when I had critical problems. I would call up one of these people. And, they were 15 years ahead of me, 20, some of them. And I'd run it down and they would give me perspective that would actually help me to solve the problem a lot better than I would have had I sat here and kept reading things and I'd banging my head against the wall. But that third party.
Yeah.
And again, there's this industry. You guys think back when we came up through here, there were not many consultants, and there weren't people doing what we're doing and what, gosh, I can think of a dozen other people are doing to help people build their business, leverage what they have, and move forward and attain what they feel is success. And I guess the other thing about staying healthy, I did not follow this advice as well as I should have. Don't get tangled up in the revenue. revenue for vanity. I'm doing this much. I want that much. I've got to have more. Take time and look at where your company is and have a controlled growth. But we always say, well, geez, I'm at 5. I want to be at 10. And there's kind of a pressure you don't need. And I fell prey to that quite often because I was a revenue guy. I wanted more revenue. I was more of a profit. I was more profit. But those kinds of things, you are where you are and you're doing what you're doing with the money you have, and things come, but they come from building foundations and people to support you. You go out and get too much revenue. I did that. I went from a 500-person company to a 300 in 3 years, and a whole lot of headaches to go with it, and lost customers. So, we're talking about continuous learning, health and wellness, work-life balance. From my perspective, not talking for the group, that's one thing you've really got to be careful of. Be more interested in the profit than the revenue, and don't think I should be here because the XYZ person's over here. That kind of comparative analysis will just cause you more tension than you want. Ed,
I knew somebody, and what he would say was, you remember when the cell phones first came out? You remember, and there was stores all over, and he said, I made $1 million in the cell phone business. Only problem was it cost me $1.25 million to do it.
Well, there's an unbelievable amount of pressure today that we did not have, and that's with social media and everybody enhancing what they're really doing, or maybe they're honest about it, but a lot of people are not. And so that puts the pressure on the competition and competing with your peers and your friends and who's doing what. And I'm going to this conference. So we didn't have social media.
Well, one other huge factor is around that time, there were 19,000 cleaning services across the U.S. Big difference.
Yeah.
Big difference than now.
What is it now, Ed? Do you have that number?
I don't have it current, but I did it about, I want to say 8 or 10 years ago, and it was I could locate 126,000 companies. Now that doesn't count the people doing the little side things on Craigslist. That's without them,
That's people with an organized company that have an LLC.
Somebody with an address and phone number. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. So it's a big difference. Think about it.
Well, I'm gonna pick up on Sharon's thing about the social media, which we didn't have. You only found out what somebody was doing when you're sitting at lunch with them or in a group or a peer meeting. But think about this. You see it occasionally, but I just lost $500,000 worth of business because we didn't take care of the customer. We didn't train. You never see those posts. Every now and again you do. All you see are the successes, and it's really a false presentation. Because all people talk about is their successes. Nobody talks about their failures. No, nobody. There are some, but as a rule, all it is the great things we're doing, and all of a sudden, well, gee, I'm not doing those great things. No, you're just not on social media telling everybody you're doing it.
Right.
So be careful of the comparative positioning. Ed?
I have no problem sharing the failures, and there's been like a bunch of them. So.
Honestly, I failed more than I've won. I've told people, find a mistake in this business, and I'll guarantee I've made it. Nobody's come up with something I haven't screwed up or lost money on yet.
Right. Right. And we don't talk about those. Nobody puts that out there. And those two are our lifelong learning episodes that we could really gain a lot of insight from. And we don't.
Well, I see we're at the appointed number of minutes by my clock here at about 20. Shall we wrap this up?
Scrub down a recap of what was covered on today's episode.
I think there's some good stuff in there, just general conversation, things for people to think about at the end of the year, to keep yourself plugged in, build your skills, keep yourself healthy, your family's healthy, and look at the whole picture. Work-life balance, for another way to describe it. So, Ed, what's your takeaway today for the folks?
It's really not business related, but one of the things that made an awful lot of sense to me, and now the payoff is, don't forget to take time to smell your kids. Remember the roses thing? Okay, well, hell with the roses, man. Smell your kids for a while, you know. It is the idea that we compartmentalize things, I think, is not in line with reality, because that's not really how we live. We don't have compartments for that. So I think that by looking at the totality of what your experience is, and it's business and family and social and philosophical and everything, is necessary to understand the big picture, because there is a big picture, for whatever that's worth.
No, it's worth a lot. This is about work-life balance and the other side of running a company. Sharon?
My takeaway is to never stop learning, whether it's books on tape, reading books, whether it's networking with peers, whether it's going to workshops, going to conventions, going to online activities. Every month of the year really should be part of your business plan for the coming year in the industry or business in general. If you think about it like a marketing plan, only this is your learning plan. And keep informed with what's happening. Go online, sign up for workshops, do whatever you have to do to keep your toes in the water and know what's going on. So lifetime learning.
Good. Great.
While you're talking about that, Ray Kroc, the guy that bought McDonald's and then turned it into a major franchise, purchased McDonald's, he had a saying that I still use today: when you're green, you're growing. When you're ripe, you're rotting.
Yes.
And that was his charge to everybody in McDonald's when he built that thing from the ground up. And it's good advice.
Yeah.
And take time. What you're doing here, time is fleeting. You can ask any three of us how fast 70 some years have gone for all of us. And at the end of it all, your business is fleeting. You never know when you're going to get underbid. You're going to change customers. So don't take what you have for granted. Be sure to put things aside. Be sure to have, what am I looking for? A cash reserve, because you don't know. This is a fast-paced business, and a lot of people don't get that. And I mean, over the years, I had customers leave that have been 10 years, 12 years with me because there was a change of contact or there was a mandate from above. There's a number of things. So take some time to enjoy what you have and celebrate it with your friends, your families, and your colleagues. That would be my takeaway.
Sounds good.
Excellent.
With all that, we'll say adios, and we'll see y'all in the next episode. Drop us a line, subscribe. Everything's down there in the fine print below us. And send it out to a few friends and family. Share the wealth. Okay, take care. We'll see you next episode.
Bye. Bye.